All right, so let me start. We are already 10 minutes behind. So last week we looked at two different things. I showed you the steps in writing case study report, and we read the November 2019 case. There are various reasons why we normally use that November 2019 case. One, that was the first diet for the current syllabus. And that diet is very useful for teaching purpose, very easy to understand, straightforward, and there is no there is no so much complexities in that case. So we use it for teaching. Now we read the case, and today we want to look at I want to demonstrate the steps in writing that report, in writing report using that November 2019 case. Right. So after this class, I mean today will also be my last class. So once I'm done, my other colleagues, one of the two other colleagues of mine will come in to take you maybe for a month or thereabout. Then the other one, the last person will also come in. Right. So today will be my last class. So after this class, I will you will have to write the November 2019 report for me. Okay? You will write it, though I've written it, I've sent it to the platform. So you write it also. There are various ways you learn. You could do reverse engineering, you could do trial and error on your own. But the goal is for you to put your pen on paper before the exam. I will strongly advise you not to wait till the exam. I mean, not to use the exam as your as your practice. I mean, don't practice with the exam. You should have practiced writing two to three reports. So apart from the 2019, I will give you two other diets to write on. Okay. Okay. So I want you to focus to look at the steps you can use in writing the report. I hope you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
You can see my screen. Good. So here is the remember I told you that the first thing you do is to prepare the cover page. Right. I hope you still remember the case. So I don't want to waste so much time by going back to the case. Right. So you could start the cover page. This is our cover page. Right.
Can we
Uh,
have the case, please? Because some of us don't have the. Some of us we're not there.
the case is on the group now. It's on your group. It's on your group. See, is there on your group? Let me see if I can also resend it. Let me see. Yes. Even the solution is there. You know, it's there. Let me also send the solution. Okay. So the first thing is to prepare the cover page, right? Prepare the cover page. Okay. This is a report. Then where is the report going to? Where? So we were told to address the report to the board of directors of Detoy Farms and Farm Products Limited. This is our client in the case. So we're asked to report to the board of directors. Then what you give the report a title, right? You give the report a title. So if you look at the how can you do that? How can you do that? So if you look at the two requirements, let me see if I can post the two requirements. If I can post the two requirements, let me see if I can do that. if you look at the two requirements, you can pick the title of the report from it. Okay, right? So here is the two requirement. Here's the two requirements. Hmm. Okay, so we were told to review the management account, right? To review the management account of the client for okay. Then our review should comprise the analysis of these key changes in overhead, revenue, and cost across the revenue streams. Then evaluate the impact of these changes on profit, operating profit. In addition, comment on the bank overdraft. I mean, the reason why they take bank overdraft, right? This is the first requirement. This is the first requirement. Okay, that's the first requirement. Now, requirement two is saying, assessment of contract supply services. I mean, service. Okay, and and um and you are also required to critically evaluate the proposed business opportunity, which is the installation of meat processing plant. Right now, so if you pick the theme of these two requirements, now what's the theme of requirement? So I mean, what's the major thing you are asked to do is to review the management accounts. That's the theme there. That's the theme there, right? And for requirement two, you have to do an assessment of contract supply service, and you are also required to what, to evaluate the what, the proposed strategic business of, which is what, installation of meat processing plant. So if we put these three things together, review of management account, assessment of contract supply, and evaluation of proposed strategic business opportunity, we can formulate our title from there. Report on financial analysis, right? You know, and business evaluation of Detroit Farms and Farm Products Limited. So, you know, it depends on what you want to do, but the major thing is, you use the team. So let me try to use the team now. Let me use the team here. You know, a report on the a report a review of DFFA on the review of and and in fact, let me use command here, and and evaluation of this, and evaluation evaluation of of the of the of the proposed, let me use meat processing plant, proposed meat processing plant. Okay, So let's see the types of the report now. A report on the review of DFFB management account, assessment of contract supply service, and evaluation of proposed meat processing plant of Detroit Farms and Farm Products Limited. Yes, that is a typical way of writing a title of the report. So once you are done with the title of the report, then from where is the report coming from? Right? Because it's an external report, it should carry the name of the firm. If it is an internal report and possibly you work under you are the subordinate of a particular person in maybe in the account department, so the name of the person should actually be here, not you. Okay, then the reporting date, right? So if you are asked to, this was the date your boss gave you the instruction. So you could choose that date. You could choose 2 days after. It depends on your choice, right? It depends on your choice. It depends on your choice. And after the date, then you put a disclaimer on the report. So this is a typical disclaimer that you can use, right? So you can adopt this disclaimer in your report when you are writing your report. It's a very simple disclaimer. If I copy this disclaimer from Mycan Packs, you know. So once you are done with the cover page, this is the cover page. Now you should actually number the cover page. So let me number it. Let me say this is my page 1. Okay. Then the next thing is to leave space. You cannot do the executive summary now. You cannot write the executive summary now. So you can leave space for executive summary. So let's say this is our page 2. So it depends on how you have practiced. If you have practiced with 2 pages, so you likely leave 2 pages here, right, on the exam day. So again, on the issue of practicing, I want to tell you that you should practice with higher education. That's long book. Practice with it. That is the closest to your answer booklet in the exam. So you should practice with it. Right. So if you have practiced with 2 pages for executive summary, you leave 2 pages here. Then once you are done with the two, I mean with once you are done leaving space for executive summary, then you can go to your introduction, right? So your introduction can start with depends on what you want to start with. Maybe you receive that letter to you know to carry out a review of the management account, as well as the contract supply, and including the appraiser of meat processing plant, right? Then you put a table of contents. So usually you can see that all these things now, they are based on what I've done, right? So it depends on what you want to do. You Okay, right. Content, cover page, executive summary, introduction, section 1. After the introduction, we are going to section 1, right? We are going to section 1. Then under that section 1, here are the things that we will do, right? But because we have done this, so you likely leave this space. Come to section 2, leave 8 lines, maybe 8 lines or so, leave 8 lines, then your appendices, right? Now, the other thing you will need to do is include the background of your client, background of the business of your client that you are working on. You include the background, and if you see under SB3, we're given the background of that business. We're told that DFFP, Detroit Farms and Farm Products Limited. So let me put DFFP here. DFFP here. DFFP was established in January 2015 by Dr. Solomon Adetutu to venture into agribusiness in Nigeria. It has acquired about 200 hectares of land to fulfill the objectives of the business. The focus of the business is this and this, right? Now, okay, I don't want to share my screen, but while I was reading the case last week, you will see that, you can check the case. You will see that SB3 gave us this detailed information about the business. So I can again, I can want you to include a bit of the background of the business in your report. I can want you to include that. And again, before I continue, you know, the reason why we have this kind of template is because before November 2019, there was no template, there was no report structure. Students would just go to the exam and they would just write the report anyhow they like. And that has resulted into lots of issues, failure, because many students don't know how they are to structure their report. So they just mix everything up, right? So in when the new syllabus was reviewed in 2019, ICANN came up with this report format that students should henceforth, at least should guide every student going forward. So in that, and that is the template I'm using with you. That is the report structure I'm teaching you right now. Right. So you can modify it, but you should include these basic things. So one of the things that they ask us to put in that report is the background of the business. Of course, there's no way you want to write about a business that you not include the background of the business. So this should be our page page number 3, right? So once you are done with the introduction, then the next thing you do is you go to the section 1. You go to the section 1. Section 1, which is for requirement 1. Remember, the requirement 1 says we should review what DFFP's what management account. We should review DFFP's management account. All right. So before you start, remember I told you that there are 8 things to be done under that section 1. Remember, the use of data and information, professional tools and knowledge, analytical skills, issues and options, professional skepticism and ethics, evaluation, evaluative skill and judgment, conclusion and recommendation. Those are the 8 things. So let's start with those 8 things one after the other. Now, remember that the requirement asks us to look at to review the management account, and before we can write here, that means we have to prepare our appendix, right? So the requirement says that we should. Can I paste the requirement again? Okay, let me try to paste it. I'll delete it back. So let me paste it. So here is requirement 1. Here is requirement 1. It says that you should review the management account. What should we do under the review? Now it now says that your review should comprise of analysis of key changes in revenue cost and overheads across its revenue streams. Fine. In comparison with previous 2 years, that is the first thing we are asked to do. Then, and the implication of this, what they mentioned here is that, if you are asked to look at the key changes, when we are looking at changes in items on the financial statement, it means trend analysis. Trend show changes, how items have changed over the years, right? That is what it means, right? And I mean, across its revenue stream, then you should evaluate the impact of these changes on operating profit. Okay, so if we are asked to evaluate the impact of these changes on operating profit, that means we will likely be looking at some form of ratios. So what are those ratios that we should look at? We could be looking at the gross profit margin ratio, operating profit margin ratio, net profit margin ratio, maybe return on capital employed. Those are the common profitability ratios that we could use to look at the profitability of the business. Right. Meanwhile, we're told to look at the profitability of the business initially. I mean, that's one of the things we are told to look at. Then they now said, please comment on the reasons for bank overdraft. Comment on the reasons for bank overdraft. Comment on the reason for bank overdraft. That means they've seen that there's possibility of liquidity issues, right? If there is no liquidity issue, there's no need for there won't be any need for overdraft. So it is likely that the working capital of the business is not well managed, and as such, there is no cash. The cash is trapped under maybe receivables and inventory, right? And possibly it is trapped there. If it is trapped there, then our payables should also be increasing, possibly. And when we looked at the other time we looked at the financial information of the company, we saw that the inventory and the receivables, they are increasing, right? So we likely have the current ratio, maybe asset test ratio, uh, maybe average inventory days, payable days, receivable days, to look at what is actually wrong. That is leading to the use of bank overdraft. So we can't actually do anything here. So we have to prepare our appendix. So let's quickly move to the appendix. So we prepare the appendix first before we before we before we do that. So for 2017 and 2018, this is our 2017 and 2018. So we look at the absolute change. We look at the absolute change. We look at the absolute change and the percentage and the percentage change. So here's the absolute change, right? We were told to look at the key changes in revenue, cost, and overhead, right? So here's the absolute change and here's the percentage change for between 2017 and 2018, and between 2018 and 2019. Absolute change and our percentage changes. Then we're asked to look at the impact of these changes across the revenue streams. So if we are asked to look at the impact of these changes across the revenue streams, then possibly we are asked to look at how it affect the operating uh, profit, right? So we could put the gross profit margin ratio, across the revenue stream. So revenue stream, we have the fishery, we also have the poultry, Here's the gross profit margin for the poultry, right? We have the cattle, This is the gross profit margin for cattle. Then we have the veggies, right? This is it. Then other ratios that will show the impact of these changes on the profitability of the organization, right? And these are those ratios: the gross profit margin ratio, overall gross profit margin ratio, operating profit margin ratio, net profit margin ratio, the employed, return on capital employed, and return on equity, working capital ratio, and revenue to assets employed. It depends on how you want to do it, right? So we could have current ratio, asset test ratio, then other ratio I mentioned before. The reason why I'm saying that is, when you are writing your own report, it depends on how you look at it. You can compute those other ratios too, so that you can identify the reason for the liquidity problem, right? So once you are able to compute your ratios, then you go back to the body of the report to write your report. You go back to that section 1 to write your report. So here's the section 1. Let me delete this. Let me delete this too. Let me keep this one somewhere. Okay. So remember I told you that this is the use of data and information. And this and because we're told to compute trend, to do trend analysis, then you here is where you bring in the trends of the trend that you have computed. You bring in the trend, then you give it a title, an overview of DFFP's financial performance. Remember I also told you that this looks more like an introduction. You can say introduction, you can put introduction, so it depends. Highlights of DFFP's financial performance. Those are the various headlines that you can use. Then the first thing I did here, and remember that you are for you to score 4 marks under the use of data and information, you are supposed to make 4 points. And you can see that these are 4 points. This is point number one on revenue. Point number two on cost of sales. This is cost of sales. Then point number three on gross profit. Then point number four on operating profit. Right. So look at the way I brought it in. DFF's revenue increased slightly from 2017 to 2018 by what? I brought in the percentage of increase. I brought in the percentage of increase computed to the tune of about 12.9 million. This is the absolute increase, right? This is the absolute increase. And from 2018 to 2019 by 19% to the tune of about 17.2 million. Then I did the same thing for cost of sales. I brought in the changes on cost of sales item. Then I also brought in the changes on gross profit. Okay, I brought in the changes on operating profit. You could also add for net profit. You could bring in the changes on net profit, right? Right. So that is the use of data and information, right? So once you are done with the use of data and information, then you go to professional tools and knowledge. Now, under the professional tools and knowledge, that is where you bring in the ratios that you have computed. That's where you bring in the ratios that you have computed. Okay. So let me take this away. Let me take this away. So trending. No, let me just, okay. So the ratios I've computed, we were told to look at the impact of those changes on the revenue streams. Then we chose the gross profit margin of each of the revenue streams to show the impact of the changes. So this is revenue stream. Then the first thing, you cannot just bring in the gross profit margin ratios, the figures of the gross profit margin ratio that you computed. The first thing is to define the ratio. You define the ratio, right? The gross profit margin ratio is a financial measure that expresses the percentage of revenue a company retains after deducting the cost of goods sold from its sales. Okay, it is a profitability ratio that provides insight into a company able to generate profit from its core operation. So after doing that, then you bring in the figures that you have computed. Remember, this is for fishery. DFF's gross profit margin has remained stable over the years at 12.6% in 2018, 2017, 2018, and 2019, respectively. You see, I've brought in the gross profit of that fishery now. And one thing you will notice is that I'm just bringing it in. I'm not making any comment on it, right? No comment on it. Fine. That's one of the steps in doing the analysis. Then the other one is, because I've defined the gross profit margin, there's no need to do the definition here again. But rather, I will just bring it in. Gross profit margin for poultry, I'm bringing the gross profit margin for poultry in. Then for cattle, I'm bringing that of cattle in. And for vegetables, I'm bringing that in as well. And the overall gross profit margin of the business, I'm bringing that in as well. Then return on capital employed, because I've not done the definition before, definition first, Then I bring in the figure, the return on capital employed. This is the figure of the return on capital employed computed, right? That is how to bring in the ratios that you have computed, right? Then once you are done bringing in the ratio, you go to the analysis. The analytical skill, the third sub skill there, analytical skill. And I told you that the analytical skill is just meant for discussion. You discuss the ratios that you have brought in. Okay, you discuss the ratios that you have brought in. So financial trend in gross profit, you know. So let me start from here because this is I've taken away that. So gross profit margin for fishery. The stable gross profit margin for fishery at 12.6% across 2010 and 2020 is noteworthy. Why this stability might indicate consistent pricing and cost structure in the fishery segment. DFFP should explore opportunities to improve gross profit margin. This could involve negotiating better deals with suppliers, enhancing production process, or adjusting pricing strategies. Understanding the factors that contribute to the stable gross profit margin will help the company to make informed decision. So here is where you make the discussion around the the figure you have brought in, the ratio you have brought in earlier, right? You know, this one stood at 23.7%. Okay, this is for poultry and cattle, 23.7% and 42 for cattle over the 3 years. So you discuss on it. What could be the reason for this ratio? You make your discussion. Okay, you make your discussion around it. Then gross profit margin for vegetables, you do the discussion, and return on capital employed. These are the about four ratios that you brought in. And what you should notice is that I'm making 4 points so that I can get 4 marks. 4.4 marks. You can at least, that's the minimum, right? But you can decide to, maybe make 5 points. Okay, you can make 5 points. Maybe you make 6 points. So but the more the points you make, the more the time you waste in. But the minimum is 4 points so that you can get 4 marks, right? Then the other thing is issues and options. What are those other issues that you have identified in the case? Maybe other ratios that you have computed. Okay, so I've tagged those issues as strengths and weaknesses and possible options in the case. I picked the cost of sales and other issues I've taken notes of in the case. Cost of sales, growth in revenue, increase in gross profit margin, interest and finance charges, strength in cattle revenue streams. These are those issues, other issues that I've identified in the case. Okay, right? And like I told you when I was explaining this, it could be some other ratios. Remember that we did not bring in all the ratios earlier. We just brought in the gross profit margin ratio. We still have some other ratios. So it could be those other ratios that you will bring in here, right? You might bring in those other ratios. Okay. Then the other thing is once you are done with the other issues that you have identified, then the evaluation of information and ethics. Remember the professional skepticism and ethics. That is the evaluation of information. You do that. And I told you that the first issue you should identify there is if you are given management account, the issue will be that it has not been audited. And unaudited financial information could contain errors and misstatements, which usually render financial accounts less reliable. Then you advise effort should be made to get this account audited in order to be reliable in making informed financial decisions. Then, then I'm questioning why they have been relying on overdraft, despite that the business is profitable. You know, I'm questioning why the reason why they resulted in using overdraft. That's another skeptical issue. Then then I'm questioning why the cattle and poultry line have been growing. Why those have been growing and others have not been growing. Possibly the reason why they are going is they are just focusing on these two because they are very people love them so much. right? People like to eat cattle meat, but they eat various things under the cattle. You could have the pomo, you could have the intestine, you could have the meat side of it and various things, right? You could have many things. So that's why they focus on it, right? And I was also skeptical about the level of receivable. Why is their receivables going very high, right? So those are the skeptical issues I identified in that case. Then the other thing is evaluating skill and judgment. Evaluating skill and judgment is when you look at the impact of external factors on the external factors on the performance of that business, right? And remember, we were given under the SCB2, we were told about those factors that affect the agribusiness in Nigeria. So revenue growth, there have been revenue growth. This could be as a result of large market for the agricultural products in Nigeria, which has resulted in an increase in demand and consequently has increased sales demand for agricultural products. So more effort should be concentrated on maintaining this level of revenue growth by ensuring continuous production of existing products and other agricultural products. Then cost of sales. What could be the reason for continuous increase in cost of sales? Possibly, uh, maybe the increase in cost of poultry feeds, fuel for running poultry generator, etc., and which could be as a result of current inflation in Nigeria economy as at that time, right? Could be the reason why the cost of sales is also growing very fast. Then the administrative expenses is also growing, right? So what are the possible factors for that? The return on capital employed is also uh, is dropping, has been dropping over the years. Okay, so maybe what could be the factors? Then I explain those. So here is basically how you identify how external factors have impacted on the performance of the business. So once you are done with that, then you go to the conclusions. Okay. So here are the conclusion, the possible positive financial trends. You know, I noticed that they've exhibited positive financial trends with consistent revenue growth, stable gross profit margin in key segments, and overall gross profit and operating profit. That's a sign of our company ability to translate revenue into increased profit, which is commendable. Then I was concerned about certain challenges, you know, so despite the possible trend, there are areas of concern, notably the continuous increase in cost of sales, leading to negative impact on gross profit. The fluctuation in the return on capital employed also raises question. Then financial strength, you know, continuous growth in revenue, cattle segment, and overall growth in gross profit margin is strength, right? And a weakness is the drop in the return on. So, so here is where you just conclude on those things you found out in your analysis, your findings in the analysis, you make conclusion on them. Okay, then recommendation is the easiest part. You recommend, on what they should do. Basically, your recommendation should just be you look at I taught you the three steps in doing analysis: identification, explanation, and recommendation. You see that every area where I've done analysis or I've made comments, I usually make recommendation. There's recommendation everywhere. So under the recommendation, you should just bring down all the recommendation you have made earlier. That's the way to go about it. Then once you are done with that, then you go to section 2. Section 2 for requirement 2. So remember, the requirement 2 asks us to evaluate the contract supply service and appraise the meat processing plant. Okay. So the first thing is to do an introduction again, which is the overview of the retail contract and the meat processing plant. Overview of the retail contract with the shop and and meat processing plant. You do an overview, which is where basically this is where we make use of information we have been given on the contract supply and the meat processing plant. Okay, so the shop is a retail mall. I think this was given in exhibit 4 or 5, either exhibit 4 or Exhibit 6. Exhibit 4, Exhibit 6, we are given this information. Retail shop is a retail mall that caters for the middle and high classes of the society, and da 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 da. And they want to enter into a long-term contract with the Detroit farms. Okay, the business proposal, if accepted, will necessitate Detroit farms to install. This was given, so I can also reference the exhibit. Okay, you can reference the exhibit. The contract includes supplying eggs, chicken, and this. Then Detroit farm management have decided to add 25% markup to all its another markup. This is information that has been given before. Then meanwhile, the installation of the meat processing plant will cost this, right? These are the information we have been given on this part of the report, on the retail contract and the meat processing plant. You will see that I try as much as possible to make use of the information under those two things we have been asked to look at here, right? So once you are done with that, then we go to professional tools and knowledge. So professional tools and knowledge is where we make use of tool for the analysis, but because there's no specific tool for the contract proposal, so it means we just identify those issues under the proposal, right? And our results for the meat processing plan. So these are the set of issues I identified under the proposal. Bishop will determine the type of fertilizer. Detroit want to determine the type of fertilizer. They also want Detroit farms to always evacuate any vegetable and meat on soil at the end of every week. The That the product will be packaged according to specification by the shop. Those are the issues that I identify. You could identify more or any other issue, right? And the present value of the proposal shows a negative NPV of 86 million, right? So I assume that you know that I've computed the I mean appendix 2. you know I've computed the appendix 2 here before I start that. You compute the appendix 2 before you start the report. Okay. So once you bring in those factors, those issues under the professional tools and knowledge, then evaluation of contract proposal and analysis of meat processing plan, then you start to analyze each of the issues you have brought in earlier. These issues that you have brought in earlier, then you discuss on them. Discuss on them. If they talk about the fertilizer, if they are saying that they will determine the fertilizer, there are many issues that could be wrong with the fertilizer. The cost of the fertilizer, the issue that the fertilizer might not really work well for the Nigerian soil. It might be that they want to suggest the South Africa fertilizer for Nigerian soil. That may not germinate very well. That may not help the plant to germinate very well. Then that I picked an issue on the evacuation of unsold vegetables and milk on weekly basis. You know, so I was looking at who will bear the cost, right? Who will bear the cost? Although there is no need to pick this issue here, because because uh you know because they already told us that they will add 25% markup to pick it. Fine. It depends on how you see it. I was interested in picking this issue, that there's no need to evacuate it now. They should find a way to sell it. Maybe they could do sales, right? So this became an issue to me, that there's no need to tell them to evacuate, because that will become a cost to them, and they can actually do a sale to dispose of those things. Then then the packaging. I picked issue on the packaging. I also picked issue on the costing and all that. Then the project appraisal is negative, which suggests that it is not viable. This could be possible reason why it's not viable is could be that the data might not be complete. The revenue items might not be complete. Of course, we were not told the what will come from using the machine for the DShop proposal. The revenue did not come in, so that could have helped in taking up the you know in making the project to be profitable. So you discuss on those issues you brought in earlier, right? That is that. Then once you are done, then you what are those other issues that you have not brought in? I mean, that you haven't discussed. So that is the issues and options. Okay. Then uh I brought in some other issues. Contract cost not specified, cost of packaging cannot be properly evaluated, and proposed implementation is not viable, right? So I brought in these other issues. Okay. Then evaluation of information and ethical concern. So this is professional skepticism and ethics. If you see, I'm not putting professional skepticism and ethics. That's not the heading you should use. You use evaluation of information and ethical issue. Then I was skeptical about the um, labeling. They said they will label as though it were to come from South Africa. It is unethical to me, and and to repackage unsold product. You know, the DFFP's management said that the unsold product that they evacuate, they will repackage it and sell it to their own customers as though it is fresh. That is unethical too. You know, probability and cost of capital are not properly identified. That is also an issue to me. Please give me 1 minute. All right, I'm back. So the probability, they use probability are just probability. What about the actual figure? I mean, we could use, those are some of the issues that could have made the MPV to be negative. Then the uh you know to discuss on the clauses. They should discuss on those clauses that I have identified earlier. Those are those uh ethical and skeptical issues I've identified. So other factors that could affect supply contract, this is evaluative skill and judgment, right? And remember, I said under evaluative skill and judgment, you are basically looking at how the impact of external factors on the project, on the proposal, right? I talked about the impact of population. Remember, we were told that there are about 200 million Nigerians who will be ready to buy those things. So it means the contract will be profitable because people will be buying, they will always buy. There's arable land, so we always produce for them. We always meet up with their request. Then post-harvest loss could be an issue, right? Then climate change could also be an issue in the arrangement. So those are the external factors that could affect the proposal and the meat processing plant. Then I make conclusion that issues contractual considerations should be those I mean those clauses that I've identified above should be looked at. Then the viability of the meat processing plant, the contract cost and planning is not okay, and the ethical consideration. Those are my conclusion. Then I made recommendation. These are my advices, right? These are those things that I believe that they should do. So once you are done with this, once you are, I didn't follow up with the page numbering again, so you can do that. Then I go back to the executive summary. I go back to the executive summary. I go back to the executive summary. So I go back to the executive summary. Remember that there are 5 things you should do under the executive summary. First, the introduction on the general scale, where you talked about the purpose of the report, summary of the two requirements, uh, you know, assumptions and skeptical issues that you have identified. The report provides an evaluation of this and this and this and this. Then, the summary of the two requirements, followed by the summary of the two requirements. I mentioned the method of analysis and all this. Um, and that meanwhile, the management account provided, this is the skeptical issue. So I made sure that I followed on those things we are asked to do under the first thing under the executive summary. Then conclusion. Remember, the second thing you should do is conclusion of requirement one. Summary of requirement one, conclusion. So this is summary of requirement one, conclusion. Analysis of David management account reviews significant changes in revenue, cost, and overhead across the revenues compared to those years. These changes have had an impact on DFF operating profit. Despite the substantial profit reported each year, DFF has had a bank overdraft at the end of each year, which is a result of poor management of its working capital. The reason for this inconsistency will require further investigation, right? Then summary of recommendation. I summarize the recommendation of requirement one. Then summary of conclusion of requirement two. This is the summary of conclusion of requirement two and summary of recommendation of requirement two. That marks the end of your report, and that is the steps you can follow in writing your report in the exam. That is the step you should follow when writing report to be submitted to me, right? It must have this all these basic parts of the report before I can check. Okay, so once I check, I want to see your cover page. Once I look at the cover page, is it complete? Yes. There's disclaimer, there's everything. Yes. Okay, I go to executive summary. Is it complete? I want 5 parts of executive summary. Part one, two, three, four, five is complete. I go to introduction. Is there table of content and background and whatever you want to put is complete. Then I go to section one, because many students make this mistake. Maybe they just do it intentionally, I don't know. So I come here. The first thing, I will count this part. I'm expecting 8 part of section one. I will count it first. This one is there. Two, three, four, five, six, conclusion 7, recommendation 8. That is complete. Then I look for section 2. Is it complete? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, conclusion 7, and recommendation 8. That makes your report is complete. Then I look at the appendices, right? So once I look at that, the structure is complete. Then I'll now look at the quality of your argument, how you make your argument, if it is reasonable, if there is sense in what you are saying. I look at it, and that is how to go about your report. That's how to go about your report. Any question? Any question? Amaka, Aramide, hello, hello.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any question for me now? Oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, I want to believe everything is clear. That's why you don't have any question. Hello? I'm waiting for your question. Oh. Okay. So if there are no questions, please, I after today's class, I will implore you to start working on your I will implore you to start working on your report immediately. Start working on it immediately. You must write report before the exam. And I'll give you two other diets. Once you are done with this diet, I will give you two other diets. In fact, those two other diets are those diets that my two other colleagues will treat with you. They will just do the solution with you. I mean, they will do the computations with you and all that. So you write report on it. Once they teach you the computation, you write reports on it, right? You write report on it. And last diet is among those two diets. So you write your report on it. So if there are no questions, so I want to thank you for today's class. This is where I will stop my lecture with you. So I will see you during the pre-scene analysis. So thank you very much. If there are no, you can always ask me questions. If you have any issue, drop it on our platform, drop it on WhatsApp, ask me any question. I will
So
attend
I
to
was
it.
not in the class last week. Can I get the recorded video? Is it sent already?
The recorded video, you should talk to see the admin of our group. You know the admin and you know the directors. You talk to the directors. We don't have access to those videos. Do you get it? So you ask the admin, they should provide those videos to you. The admin should provide the videos to you, right? So that's what I can say on that. So if there are no questions, thank you so much. Please make sure, I'm repeating it, make sure you do your report. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.